Welcome everyone to our episode number 61 on the podcast Cultivating a New Generation. And in today's episode, we are going to discuss an important topic that is right now very urgent to address with people as we are moving into developing a new world, a new normal, a new strategy, a new way of living, and everyone is shifting in their own way. So it's identity, reflection, and designing your life. That's the topic that we are going to discuss today. That's the title of our episode. And to discuss about this episode, I use as a reference an article from the author Dishon from 2017. And the title of the article is The Effect of Trait Self-Awareness, Self-Reflection, and Perceptions of Choice, Meaningfulness as Indicators of Social Identity within a decision-making context. So we are going to dive deep into how reflecting and identity and designing your choices is extremely important right now that we are moving into this new stage where we have to find ourselves again in the world. So the objective of this episode and of course of the research is that self-reflective is reasoning more about the things that you have. It's a cognitive process that can be a theory and can be, of course, practical and is central to the narrative identity development. The more you reflect about the things that you are doing, the more you put time into thinking what you are doing, the more your narrative, your dialogue is going to change. And that can have a causal effect on the self, on your own inner self, and the identity that you are developing. We are going to also explore if that effect could be impacted by the level of meaningfulness that you associate with the self-reflective process and can be modulated by individual differences, which is what happens in life. And of course, is going to allow you to develop a new character, a new way of being. So we are going to go into the research of this. McAdams in 1985 and 2001, he had a model of narrative identity that postulates that our sense of identity is inextricably linked with the creation of a life story. According to this model, the self-narratives have two primary functions. They facilitate our sense of self-continuity across time, and they help us give context and meaning to the events of our lives so that we can make sense of who we are. And that's what is happening constantly in our lives. We are moving in the creation, in the decision, in the process of life, and by taking action, by doing these kind of simple decisions, we are creating our own story. So we become the writers. And if we allow to pause in our lives and to witness what we have been doing, then we become the editors also. And we can change many of the things that we want to, of course, upgrade in the experience. The self-narratives facilitate the meaning making because they allow the narrator to draw a semantic conclusion about the self from the episodic information that the story conveys. So whenever you have a dialogue within yourself, whenever you allow this process of self-reflection, is when you pause time in your own story and you witness what have you been doing, and if you like it or not, and what is the future for the self that you want to create. Within the narrative identity literature, The process of self-reflection is coupled with the extraction of self-relevant meaning, which is referred to as autobiographical reasoning, and it is theorized to be an essential cognitive process in narrative identity development and deconstruction. Why? Because we are taking the most important things that we are doing, finding the meaning, and then developing an identity under those small episodes of our lives that can be just a talk with someone during a weekend where you start a dialogue about the things that have been happening in each other's life, and you give feedback. All of those narrative things, when you reflect later under the things that you were saying, that's when you are creating now a new story, a new identity, and you identify more with certain values, certain things than in the past. So you will never have the same conversation with anyone. It is always changing, as your identity can always be shifted. Also, reflective functioning has been used to describe a person's ability to reflect on the experiences, to draw inferences about the behavior from these reflections, and then use those inferences to construct and develop representations of the self. So what we are doing with this process of reflection is that we are finding the meaning, finding the failures, finding the success, and finding the things that we can repeat in another setting that becomes similar, or to use it into shifting through another context. Research which has investigated reflective functioning has demonstrated changes in reflective functioning are linked to self-concept change. So, and we have witnessed this in practical life. Whenever we interact with people that have more this reflection process, that question more about their lives, that have goals, that have vision, that have more meaning than the simple things that they are receiving from the media, whatever the form it is, those people change in a way that their lives is reflecting what they are doing, is reflecting the congruence of the things that have been shifting. People that are just living in automatic pilot, you can have a long period of not seeing them, and their lives are just the same, and they are the same. They don't change, and they don't upgrade their lives, and they probably are in the same place complaining about the same things, because they don't have this kind of ritual of reflecting. They don't envision themselves. They are just thinking in getting to the weekend, in not suffering the work life or the automatic process that happens during the week. And they crave for the weekend, they party or they drink or they do something to distract, and the process begins again. But nothing happens with their lives. They are in the same place. For example, in research, when persons are affected by borderline personality disorder, which is a condition that is characterized by unstable sense of self, they found that improvements in reflective functioning were associated with improvements in self-representation and a more integrated sense of self. Imagine, psychiatric disorders can be treated with this kind of process of self-reflection. So in a typical self-referential memory study, different word categories, for example, were presented to the participants who were instructed to remember them when they exposed and then ask to recall them at a later time. The self-reference effect describes the tendency for participants to retrieve traits and adjectives that are self-related more successfully than words that are semantically or orthographically related. What does this mean? This means that we are attracting what we are when we review words or when we interact with people. That's why the same kind of people is surrounding you if you are not changing. So you say, why do I fall into the same kind of jobs or with the same kind of conflicts with people at work? Because you are not changing, because you are the same, because you are attracting that energy, because you inside have that uh, automatic process of living, complaining, and blaming the external circumstances. When you stop and pause and take care of your own life and start changing and start envisioning a different kind of setting, then different people is going to surround you. In this theoretical sense and in this research, influential thinkers such as Erickson, which is a very high personality in terms of psychology and this self-reflection research, Viktor Frankl, which wrote Man in Search of Meaning, and another research, Brunner in 1990, have all argued strongly for the idea that meaning is likely to play an important role in self and identity development. At the same time, research from within the organizational psychology literature has demonstrated empirically in the things that happen at work that perception of meaningfulness are associated with a range of self-related outcomes. And this makes sense because when people are more drawn to the activities that have meaning, when they are more drawn to question the things, not just to accept, and they have a perception that is wider and more open, they have more a panoramic view of whatever is happening in their own lives, in their work, and in whatever activity they engage. So that's the power of reflection. That's the power of engaging into searching for meaning, into becoming not just someone that is reacting, not some vegetative form of human that is craving for the weekends, that is not pleasant with their lives. And when they ask, or when somebody asks them, how are they feeling? They just answer, I'm fine. Well, I'm fine is just a reflection that you are bored, probably with your life. You have a lot of issues. You don't want to go deeper because you are afraid, but you are not allowing to pause. And it is not judging. It is just assembling your own life, trying to see it from another perspective. Psychological empowerment captures the employee's cognitive motivational stance toward their work, and it is comprised of 4 dimensions. So this is how you empower people in a psychological setting in your company. And if you are a boss, if you are a manager, if you are a CEO, this is very interesting for you because this is the perspective that many of the bosses don't have, at least in the kind of experiences in Mexico. I cannot speak too much about other places, but sometimes it is the same case. It is comprised of 4 dimensions, this psychological empowerment: impact, competence, autonomy, and of particular pertinence given the current investigation, also the meaning, which reflects the degree to which one perceives their work as being personally meaningful. So your employees are looking more for the impact that they are having in the end result. They probably are in the assembly lines or they are just doing mechanical work, but they want to know what happens with the product. What is the result of their input? So the more you show them what is the final impact, the more you are going to engage them. Competence. You have to recognize people for their work that they are doing, not just because they are in a middle level or in an entry level position. You are not going to recognize, because all of those positions are creating the ladder of the meaning and of the final product. Autonomy. You have to trust in your people, which is something that I can speak from Mexico. Many bosses don't trust in the work that people are doing here because they are more controlling. So the more you release the control, the more you give them tools, the more you train them and teach them how to do the things, the more autonomy you will give them, and easier is going to be for them to find the space to do the work and not just comply with the schedule. And meaning. What is the meaning of what they are doing? That this can also be conveyed with the impact, showing them what is happening with all their work. So that's what they want to know. And of course, recognition is extremely important. The importance of perceptions of meaningfulness within the context of this psychological empowerment is further highlighted by other researchers who argue that the dimension of meaning serves as the engine of empowerment. The more meaning they can find in their work, the more committed they are going to be. Research exploring psychological empowerment and the individual factor level has noted that differences in meaning are positively associated with several self-related outcomes, such as self-esteem and self-efficacy. So people are going to feel more connected with the work that they are doing because they are going to trust and have more confidence with themselves because of the autonomy, because of the impact, because you already explained what is the meaning of their work and that they are very important in this ladder, in this assembly of the final products. And you are going to create self-efficacy, which is independence. You want more time to do important things and not be just micromanaging people. So when you release them, when they have more autonomy, they become more self-efficient. The research in all of these areas have found that these individual difference in trait self-awareness are associated with perception of choice, meaningfulness, within a decision-making context. And this is very important in terms of taking time also to think if what you are doing is still the thing that you want to do for the next 5 years or 10 years of your life. If not, it is time to be shifting. It is time to grow. It is time to acquire different skills. And it is time to change your identity, to start reflecting the new values that you want to imbue in yourself. Based on pre-existing literature in this explore self-awareness, we define trait self-awareness as individual differences in the capacity to access knowledge, insight, and understanding of internal self-related experiences. So the more you become self-taught and you look for the skills that you want to develop, understand more about your skills and the opportunity that you have in certain areas, you are going to grow faster and you are going to create a wide variety of skills. And the research has found that participants with higher levels of trait self-awareness, they perceive significantly more meaning in a series of minor experimentally induced choices compared to those with lower levels of trait self-awareness. So the more you become independent, the more you question your skills, the more you look for the information and knowledge to acquire more, it is obvious that you are going to be more skillful to take better choices. Moreover, this difference in people remains irrespective whether or not participants were told that their choices were just a diagnostic of important personal characteristics. So imagine that you are in an interview, and in this interview, you already work with these kind of skills that you wanted to develop. You are shifting into a different kind of job, and you already acquired the knowledge that you need to be able to develop the new work or the new position that you are applying to. You are going to have a much successful interview process than the person that is just applying for the job without even taking time to develop skills, or because he or she was just recommended. You have much more opportunity to create a different kind of vision and layout for your life if you have the time to pause and to ask yourself if you are still finding meaning in the job that you are doing, and how can you upgrade your experience in terms of either moving from that setting or staying, but finding a different kind of parallel activity that can give you the fulfillment that you are looking for. So from this view of social identity theory, the sense of identity is heavily influenced also by the social groups we belong to. So this social identity concept was introduced in 1981 by the researcher Tygel. He discovered that an individual's self-concept, which derives from his knowledge of the membership of a social group, is extremely important with them. And they have a very strong belonging, sense of belonging towards that group. Within this social identity, the paradigm now is that this group is facilitating the measure of favoritism and discrimination in one way or another towards the people that want to get in the group. That is the dangerous part of becoming so attached to the values of certain social groups that we subconsciously become more prone to be discriminatory with other people just because they don't reflect, or we think they don't reflect, the kind of characteristics to be in this kind of group. So it is just something that is happening in our everyday lives, and we don't reflect also about this process, because the main friends, the 5 main people that you are surrounded with, are the ones that you are going to acquire a lot of characteristics, even personality traits. And of course, the vision of your life is going to be limited by this kind of people. That's why you have to also assess the kind of friendships, the kind of close relationships that you want to have surrounding you, because the more expansive your circle becomes and the more growth mindset you look for people, that's the challenging situations that you are going to face. You are going to be with people that reflect, that have a vision for their lives, and that keep asking questions so that they can upgrade their own lives. If you are surrounded with people that is just living in an automatic life, unconsciously, you will be in that place too. So that's the importance of this social identity. And finally, research is also important in the context of the current um, studies of self-reflection, identification, and the power of choice. That the more you are independent to be self-reflective, to reason more, to construct a process, a ritual of writing what you want of your life, recording if you don't like to write, or simply going in a walk and thinking about your own life, the more you are going to be prone, upgraded, empowered, and skillful to take decisions based on the meaning, based on the impact, and based on what you want for your life. All of our lives can be lived in two states. Sadly, many people choose to live in the reactive mode, in the automatic mode, in the default network, where they don't think, where they just live, where they just react, where they just absorb these kind of external situations by the platforms of social media, by the news, by the social group that they belong to, or by any other external situation. So you can live in that way, and you can make suffering your slogan and live blaming every circumstance, person, event, or external cue for your bad luck, or they can you can live, of course, a different kind of life and stop blaming the karma, and stop blaming that you don't understand things that are happening and they keep happening. They will keep happening because you are just looking for validation of your bad luck. They will keep happening because you keep living by the external noise. They will keep happening the more you take the victim role. So that's the tragedy of many of people that choose the reactive mode of living. The other kind of people that moves in another setting, that moves in another scenario, that moves in another kind of world, are the people that balance their lives towards being in a reflective mode. And we all have this capacity. As I just dive deeper into the research of these self-reflective theories and the social identity and the power of taking decisions. So in this self-reflective mode, you are not fantasizing that your life can be perfect and you will never react. You are human, but you are more grounded into a life that is more a self-creation rather than a punishment, rather than complaining. You are more positive in this kind of life. You have a look for solutions, not for the problems. You usually don't follow instructions without questioning the things because you have a rebel spirit, sort of saying. You are more aligned with listening to your own intuition, to your heart, which has a 40,000 neurons in his nervous system. So you are more guided by your heart. You are more guided by your experience of a life that is flowing with a state to be empowered, to be enlightened, to be positive, instead of being in the depressive mode or reactive way. Many of us have experienced both sides of this story. We all have been in both sides at any point in time. Even the best ones, even the more enlightened, they have also been some part of time in a reactive mode, but they allow themselves to shift, to pivot from those places. And what are those factors that can create a great choice to simply test what feels more comfortable, what feels more like a burden that certainly we didn't choose to carry throughout our whole span of time in this earth, or what is the choice of feeling empowered, of feeling a creator, of feeling that you can design your own life. What are some factors, signals, experiences that can help you to change side and to pivot from one reactive mode, non-reflective, to the reactive, self-creating, empower mode? Certainly, there are some circumstances which are suffering the loss of any kind of job, couple, parent, child, etc. When we are in the grieving process, we are um, torn apart, let's say, we are being pushed by the pain to activate the buttons that can send you to feel completely powerless for some time, which ironically, if you happen to tap into your body's wisdom, will allow you to listen more to your wisdom teacher, which is your heart, and you will start to listen more to the whispers, to the cues, to follow down that road of pain for a while and start priming a reflection experiences of your life. And from there, you are going to pick up the messages, you are going to pick up the empowerment, you are going to pick up the meaning, and you are going to be like a butterfly. You are going to disrupt the system that is giving you coherence, and then you are going to expand more. That's one of the process that can be lived, and that's one of the ways that you can be moving to the side, and that is the strongest one, of course. A second triggering factor is developing a chronic ailment or a disease that is, of course, chronic also, or being scared by a false diagnosis. In general, this has to do with your health. When you are threatened about your health, when our health is challenged to a level where we also experience that sense of being completely vulnerable, helpless, or frustrated because we also know we had already been given the opportunity to pay more attention to our body, we will also be guided into the powerful exercise of reflection, because now you are listening to your body, whether it was because of that wrong diagnosis or because you develop any kind of chronic illness that can be reversible, most of them. If you tune in into your body wisdom, which is interoception, you are going also to find the messages to shift and to be in charge of your life, which is the process that many of us have lived in these past 2 years. We were challenged in our health, everyone, independently if you have any kind of external aid or if you just got the virus, whatever it is your case, you were challenged and you will keep being challenged. Understand that. That's why our health and our body is extremely important also to listen to, because we are going to take a lot of messages from it and we can shift and change just by paying attention to our health, which includes your brain, of course. And finally, the third factor to move into the reflective mode is priming your reflection. Is the fact that your life has become completely boring, meaningless, and you feel a constant dragging experience when you have to get up and live another day. This is the kind of message, this is the kind of signal that goes for the people that are just looking for the weekends. All of the people that listen to this episode and that feel identified with that kind of being is because you are not satisfied with the life that you want. And you can just shift. It doesn't have to do something that you can do the next Monday or the next week, but you can start designing the process. You can start writing. You can start reflecting and walking. You can start recording yourself in the way you want your life to shift and looking for the content and the knowledge that you want to acquire, looking for a mentor or a coach, looking for programs to learn more things about yourself, and starting to develop the skills where you want to move in. Yes, it is harsh, the comments and the sound of this, that your life is completely boring, but it's the truth. There are several individuals that suffer that syndrome of being completely unmotivated with their lives, and at certain point of that depressing journey, they just realize that they want to change and live a completely different experience. And as you can see by the factors and the environment that will impact your life, will be a reactive way of living. All of them have a sour flavor. That reactive way of living is feeling that your life is more like a punishment, that is a tragic, dark journey, that is a payment of the past struggle lives, or a repetitive sequence that completely haunts you every morning until you are far deep into that depressive mode. So get out before it's too late. On the other hand, giving yourself the amazing choice of reflecting about your life without entering in the category of any of those three factors, and will not only prevent you from suffering by choice, but will also open a completely new way of seeing your life, is that you are the creator, is that you are the producer, is that you are the director, instead of just the victim, the spectator, and the character that has no choice but to accept its destiny. That's not who you are. That's who the media, who the news, who the any kind of company, food or pharmaceutical company wants you to think, but you are not that. You are not that. You are the creator of your own life. We are blessed with this amazing physical experience. It is short. We don't even know when it's going to end. So why wasting it into something that probably you never signed up for? You just took it because that's what people told you. That's what society told you. At least not in the conscious way. You didn't take it like that. And at any point in our paths, we can pursue and we can pause the movie to be in another path, to rewind it, to learn from it, to make sense, to make some trimming, editing sequences, to observe in slow motion the patterns, the beliefs, the voices, the characters that we need to let go, that we need to say, this is not my dialogue, this is not resonating with me, this is just something that was imposed to me because I was not conscious, and that's it. And you don't even have to blame anyone. You just have to be in the ownership creator mode and become this kind of person that you want to be. Embrace your life now before you become more programmed to believe that you don't have a voice in your own story. Thank you for paying attention. Thank you for being in this episode. And we will listen to each other on our next one. If it resonates the content, if you know anyone that needs to be shaken and needs to have this kind of knowledge so that they start pursuing a different kind of life, just allow me to have the information for them and to share this episode. Thank you and have a wonderful day. Bye.